Wow, Sonic just keeps hitting recently, and it's hitting hard. Sonic Prime Prologue Divergence. What an animation. I can't overstate the sheer happiness watching that trailer brought me. Animation, sorry. So good. They put in a lot of work. You can clearly tell, for a start, it's 6 minutes plus long, which for an animation of this quality, considering it's for free and it's not attached to anything, that's pretty impressive already. But the detail in the imagery, the animation, the audio, the sound effects, the voices, all of this comes together for a really complete, high quality package. So to begin with, if you haven't actually watched it, which I don't know how you haven't, but stop watching this and go and watch the prologue. It is 100% worth your time. I could sing its praises forever, but then we won't get anywhere. The visuals are absolutely stunning. It's a top tier piece of content. Some of the best Sonic content I have seen in the last 15 years. Seriously, just this animation alone, and most importantly, what it actually tells us, the things contained inside of it. The whole package is one of the best pieces of Sonic content I've seen. And a part of the things it's telling us are signs of a strong continuity returning. Something that I've harped on about in numerous of my older Sonic videos is that the series used to have a through line of continuity. Sometimes it did get a little bit wibbly wobbly, but for the longest time it was actually almost always present, and it helped inform decisions that were made in the past having an impact in the future. It allowed us to see characters grow in believable ways and take actions based on experiences we've seen them have in the past, and it could even create cool new story beats that would draw from actions taken in the past. And then around 2009, somewhere around then, the series just got cut off from its past selves, and ever since then the stories have just rung hollow for myself and a lot of other people who had been following up until that point. And a quick disclaimer, yes, even the classics had this through line, and yes, it's the same line that went from the classics to Adventure and the early 3D era, but there are other videos that can argue that point. Here, we're just talking about the prologue and the fact that not only does it show us Angel Island, which we'll get into in a second, but it shows us Sky Sanctuary and Knuckles going from Angel Island to Sky Sanctuary. That's part of what I mean. They are acknowledging that both those locations do exist and that Angel Island does connect to Sky Sanctuary, but also that Knuckles will travel to Sky Sanctuary during his time on Angel Island and explore both locations. And they do a good bit of future-proofing as well, as Knuckles mentions that there are still aspects to his home he hasn't fully understood. There's still things he discovers as he lives his life, which is very good detail. It's not fully known to him, even though he is the greatest expert currently alive on the area, and it's understandable. The area is huge, mysterious, and can change in many different ways over time. Knuckles himself... No, hang on, cut that. The whole imagery and the way that the story is presented to us, it's so reminiscent of that type of storytelling we were getting before Sonic Colors. Pre-Colors era of Sonic the Hedgehog storytelling, it feels like that. There's a lot of weight, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of the character's own personality inserted into the point of view we're given, and there's a lot of opportunities to establish something based on what has been shown. Knuckles' voice in this prologue is great. The voice actor, I believe, is the same person who stepped in for Knuckles during Team Sonic Racing. And a lot of the time, you hear people say, oh, voice directing, you know, is effective. But it's hard to believe that sometimes when you only hear a similar style of voice from an actor. But considering, if I'm right, this is only the second time this person has done Knuckles, the difference is absolutely phenomenal between the performance in Team Sonic Racing and the performance here, and it in the best possible way. Knuckles can portray thoughtfulness, calm emotions, some clarity, introspection, some awkwardness with the Chow when he thinks he's upset at it, and also the right amount of aggressiveness with a hint of cockiness when the situation calls for it. He covers it all, and Knuckles' voice doesn't sound forced when he's doing one of his different roles. It doesn't sound as if he's bigging himself up. It reminds me a lot of the sort of Adventure 1, more down-to-earth voice for Knuckles, but he can still get himself animated like some more recent Knuckles portrayals when he's in a combat scenario or agitated. It's great. It's an amazing direction for Knuckles' voice, so props to the actor for getting it down like that. I can't really complain about it at all. Although there are countless things to appreciate in this animation, let's start digging into the meat of what's presented within it. So Angel Island gets reintroduced to the viewer. Knuckles explains some of its history and its importance, not just to him, but to the Sonic universe at large, and we get to see some very impactful moments of Tickle's SA1 section, as well as Knuckles explaining his role as protecting not just the island itself, but the creatures that dwell upon it, and that there are no major civilizations on the island, although there once was long time ago. A lot of you who've been around for a while already knew everything Knuckles said there, but the reason I think it's presented in this way is because, let's face it, it's been a long time since Knuckles has been relevant in the stories outside of showing up, and an even longer time beyond that to where Angel Island has even been mentioned, let alone its relevancy to the series, which can be odd. Again, if you've been here for a while and you take a step back, it can be strange to look at the series over the last 11, 14 years and realise, yeah, Angel Island's basically unknown at this point. Sure, character bios and maybe a level description in Generations might make mention of Angel Island, but if you've joined, I keep saying recently, but 12 years is quite some time. If you've joined somewhat around then or later, you could understandably not really have much of a clue about any of the SA1, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, or just general Knuckles lore at all. And that's why I think it's been included here, because the people behind this animation understood that, and so the best way to bring everyone back up to speed is to just explain it in a very simple way with Knuckles at the start. But it also can inform us of some of the intentions perhaps behind the writing in this animation, that they're saying, yes, we know that this has been dropped to the side for a while, but we're bringing it back because we want to push forward with the story whilst respecting the past, which is something that I would argue hasn't been true for quite some time. So this is clearly an establishing shot, keeping everyone onto the same page and reminding us of some things that perhaps have been forgotten. In a way, you could also see this as Sonic Frontiers sort of glossing over the past 10 or so years of the mainline Sonic canon. It's a little bit complicated, but in an attempt to restore the narrative weight of the Sonic series, you can understand why they may want to act as if Knuckles has been living his Angel Island-based life over the last 10 years, rather than the roles we've actually seen him uphold during that time. Playing it down in a way to where we're sort of waving that idea away and saying, okay, so you've played those games, you've seen it there, but we're going to be saying that Knuckles most of the time wasn't doing all of that and was instead on his own on the island. And sure, he did come down to assist his friends every so often, but most of the time he was actually over there. Again, you need to remember that Angel Island hasn't actually been referenced in a long time, so presumably Knuckles sort of is just there for the plot and we don't really know what he's doing outside of it. Effectively, what I'm trying to say is you could consider this a sort of retcon or a soft reboot, where yes, in real life, Lost World has happened, Colors DS has happened, Generations has happened, Forces unfortunately has happened, but they're either saying that now that didn't really happen, and instead he was doing more of his usual thing, or perhaps they're just pretending that the details are a bit blurry. Soft reboots is a whole other conversation of its own. I've actually done a video talking about Sonic and retcons and soft reboots that you may want to check out if you want a more in-depth explanation, but you don't have to confirm, hey, we are saying this no longer happened anymore. You can instead just keep it vague, even if there's some contradicting information, and allow the audience to accept what they wish to accept, but still push forward in a new direction. So this sort of soft rebooting of Knuckles' portrayals in the modern series to be more back in line with how he was before his character got altered around the Colors time. That's what I'm referring to here. And if this is indeed what's going on, and I'm not looking too far into it, then that's a choice I'm supportive of, because I feel like a whole lot of the cast lost big amounts of their appeal and identity during the directional shift that came with Sonic Colors. Whilst Knuckles is contemplating over the recent thoughts he's been having, we see what is a glowing, sparkly red orb in the present day, which in and of itself is a very interesting detail, because that is the orb that represents Tikal's spirit, and it has only ever represented that throughout the Sonic series lifespan. There is nothing else to conflate it with. Originally, Tikal and Chaos departed as spirits into some form of afterlife at the end of Sonic Adventure 1, but that kind of got officially retconned by numerous official Sonic media that referred to either Tikal or Chaos still residing inside the Master Emerald after the events of Sonic Adventure 1, which, just to add, I'm in favour of personally, because it allows them to have a chance to be involved once again at some point within a Sonic story. And Sonic Battle is basically the biggest example of this, since it features Chaos in a role where Knuckles informs us he will arrive if the world is in grave danger. So Knuckles himself was aware that that could happen, but based on Adventure 1, that's not how it looked like. So clearly there was a decision at some point made behind the scenes to change that, which is again similar to what I was talking about before, where perhaps Knuckles' history over the last 10 years is going to be slightly altered. Regardless, back to Tikal, it is unclear if Knuckles actually saw her in this video or if it was only meant for us viewers to notice, because whilst he does look in her direction, he also makes no acknowledgement and then proceeds to look elsewhere. It's very hard to tell. He even follows Tikal initially before he turns the complete other way. I don't know if she's always been there now and so he's just used to that, or yeah, it's hard for me to pin it down. It's either way, whatever it's true, I am certain that she did exist and it wasn't just a cool little reference, as the animation even included the jingle sound her orb emits in SA1. So the question is, for what purpose was she shown off? And that I do not know. Alongside the cameo of Tikal though, is a proposed question from Knuckles over the past of the Emeralds. He questions who were the ones to have established the Emerald Altar, and potentially even the Chaos Emeralds themselves. All this time, I had just assumed Echidna of some sort created the Emerald Altars, and this may turn out to still be the case, but Knuckles' questioning here makes a lot of sense. Pachacamac, as presented in Sonic Adventure 1, knew of the Chaos Emeralds and their current location, but did not actually possess any of them at that time. Based on Tikal's chant, it's almost certain the Echidna had already used the emeralds at one point, but that also doesn't guarantee they were the first civilization to do so. I never really questioned if someone other than the Echidnas were involved with the Chaos Emeralds so far back in history. Sonic Frontiers could be poising itself to answer this question, which would be a great way to re-establish more thoughtful storylines in Sonic games after all this time, tying it into something very important and core to the series, the Chaos Emeralds, but also tangentially bringing back the plot threads of Angel Island, which has been present in both the classic era and the adventure era. Very exciting stuff. I think it's worth a mention of how Sky Sanctuary is portrayed in this animation. It looks great, and the inhabitants of it, being the Chao predominantly, is such a nice touch, gives it a feeling of life, despite the fact that these are basically abandoned and decrepit ruins. But nature has reclaimed it, and the Chao are playing around, flying around, which thanks to their wings they can get away with. But it's a nice scene that really makes me think, wow, imagine if Sonic Frontiers had some DLC where as Knuckles you could explore this portrayal of Sky Sanctuary, flying around in the nice shaded sections of the pillars and architectures, and then punching your way to the more ruinous, less explored areas, with Chao still about that you could interact with along the way. And it doesn't even have to be action focused, it could be a nice relaxing sort of miniature hub world where you're just playing as Knuckles, exploring, climbing, gliding and breaking things, looking at the Chao, looking after the Chao, and maybe the objective is you're just looking for a couple items. Perhaps he's looking for more of those gears after the events of the game, maybe he's just looking for a hat. I don't know. I just think that what we see here looks so good, and Frontiers' engine could probably support a Knuckles explorative type of mode or DLC. Also, the music is a very nice touch. If you pay attention, the Sky Sanctuary theme is blended into that nice melodic sound that you're hearing. So all in all, that part is done quite nicely. But of course, the main thing that occurs in Sky Sanctuary is Knuckles locating one of those gears for the cyberspace, as well as a mask that resembles the Coco's. And what I found very eye-catching is how the Chao in the area puts it on. Of course, Chao put things on their face all the time, so you might not see what I'm seeing, but my point is, the Coco's, especially after their redesign, resemble the Chao in more than one way. And now we're seeing, in the present, a Chao putting on a mask, and it fits quite well. I don't know, I'm just saying that looks like some sort of a comparison the animation's drawing. Putting it down, I'm picking it up. I could be wrong, but it does feel like there might be something there, especially because the Chao were connected to the Master Emerald altar originally, and the question that this animation is putting forward is, but who were related to the Emeralds before the Echidna? So just like how the Chao were around with the Echidna, the Coco's could have been around with whoever was before. Are the Coco's related to the Chao genetically? Who knows? The existence of a portal to the Starfall Islands, or the cyberspace, or whatever you want to call it, on Angel Island, or Sky Sanctuary, is another element of them tying in Knuckles' quest and storyline with this new faction of older beings before the Echidna that have something to do with the Chaos Emerald, and maybe Angel Island itself, unclear. But the fact that the portal's there is showing us that connection is very much intentional and staple going forward, presumably, as it's a part of Knuckles' home. This reversal, just before he gets there, was showing us Knuckles' skill set in case you weren't aware of what he could do beforehand. So you get to see he can glide, he can climb, and that he's really strong. But then you get to see the strength in a different light, because once he gets sent through, he has the fight scene against those minion robots. And this fight scene, very good. The impact of every strike Knuckles delivers is both visually clear and impactfully backed up with the sound design. The music and where it comes in and explodes and then pitters down once the threatening larger creatures show up. Also excellently handled. It's an amazing scene that portrays Knuckles' strengths as well as his attitude to combat and challenge. There's nothing to criticize with it. Seriously, I'm very impressed with what was put on display here. And whilst narratively there's not much you can gain from Knuckles beating up robots, it did look pretty cool. Of course, it comes to an abrupt end as Sage and the, what's it called, the Asura robot appear and seem to just blink him into some sort of digitized prison where he's a holographic shade of his former self. So it's good to see at least Knuckles went down fighting, and they have Knuckles reminisce on working on his own again like he did at the start as a form of irony, since being on his own he was unable to escape the fate he finds himself in. But that was still excellently done. And after watching this, my hopes for what we can see in Frontiers shot up immensely. I was already kind of on the hopeful side of things, since I knew they kept stating story was a focus for them now, and gameplay matters to me as well. I want everything to be great, but they've said story matters to them at numerous points in the recent past, and then we see what we get and it just doesn't add up. So even though they were saying it again now, you can understand I had my reservations. Those reservations, I won't lie, are going to be there until I play the game. They're still there now, but they've definitely lessened after seeing this. We got to see Knuckles given some actual justice to his character, as well as an understanding of that character. They didn't just play it safe. He's put in a pretty interesting scenario that he's not been in too often before, and he handled it well. We get to see that they've given the voice actor better directions on how to put himself into Knuckles' position, and it's so good. The voice is so good with Knuckles now. Some of the best we've heard in years. The world seems interesting. There's mystery, there's intrigue, and there's room to explore, as well as connections to the past. And the vision, the passion, you can't tell me that there wasn't passion put behind this. You just don't make something like this without people on the team actually caring about what they're doing. So I am very positive about this Prologue Divergence animation, and naturally that bleeds into my anticipation for Frontiers, which, yeah, is less than a week away. Can you believe that? Anyway, that's about everything I had to cover for this fantastic Sonic Frontiers prologue. It gets a lot right, and it leaves me interested to see what the main game has to offer. What did you think of this prologue? Are you as impressed as I am? Is there anything you think I've missed out that was worth bringing mention to? Let me know in the comments down below. And thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. It helps the channel out immensely and lets me know you enjoy the style of content I provide. I hope you have a great day, and to see you next time. This is the Mighty Emperor, signing off.